Welcome to Cross Border Interviews, the show where we dive into the insights of municipal political leaders from across Canada. Our mission on this show is quite simple: shine a light on the dedicated individuals who day in, day out, work around the council table to shape the communities that we call home. And for today's episode, we are sitting down and chatting with District of Squamish Councillor John French. Located at the northern tip of a glacially etched fjord on the Pacific Ocean, surrounded by a spectacular mountain backdrop and nestled within a temperate rainforest, Squamish is recognized worldwide for its recreation, culture, and incredible mountain lifestyle. Ideally situated on the scenic sea-to-sky highway between Vancouver and Whistler, Squamish is a vibrant, strong, healthy community and is envied for its wide range of outdoor recreational activities, including world-class trails, rock climbing parks, consistent wind patterns, a relatively mild year-round climate, a healthy wildlife population, and a proximity to the ocean which is enviable. Squamish is a sought-after destination for mountain bikers, hikers, rock climbers, kite and windsurfers, kayakers, ski tourers, wildlife viewers, and backcountry enthusiasts alike. Across Canada, our cities, towns, villages, and rural communities are alive with stories waiting to be told. Stories of innovation and economic development, resilience in the face of the housing challenges, and the financial hurdles municipalities overcome every day. At the Cross Border Network, we bring these stories to life. From coast to coast to coast, we're connecting Canadians to the issues shaping our communities and showcasing the people working tirelessly to make them thrive. With your support, we can expand our reach, amplify more voices, and shine a light on the challenges and triumphs of municipal life. For as little as $3.99 a month, you can help us grow and continue sharing the stories that matter most. Join us today and be part of this important mission. Together, we can tell more stories, build stronger communities, and make a real difference. Support the Cross Border Network now. Visit www.crossborderinterviews.ca today. Councillor French, thank you so much for sitting down with me and chatting about yourself and talking about the great community of the District of Squamish, British Columbia. But before we talk about the community, I got to get to know the man behind the persona a little bit. I've got to start with a very simple question. Where did your sense of duty to serve your community come from, John?
Well, I think it probably came from my parents. My father was a volunteer firefighter for more than 25 years. And my parents volunteered for like almost everything you could think of that was happening in our community, from sports that me and my siblings were involved in, to Cub Scouts Brownies, to the annual Logger Sports festivities that take place here. Yeah, my parents really set me up with volunteerism as a value.
Volunteerism is one thing, but politics is a completely different aspect. Was anyone in your family a politician before you decided to jump into the sort of the deep end of the pool, or where did your desire to serve on council come from?
Yeah, I think technically I'm the first in my family to make the crazy decision to seek elected office. And I guess for me, it really started um, when I was working as a young journalist. I grew up in Squamish. I was born here, and I left for post-secondary education. And my studies were broadcast, not necessarily journalism. And so I was in a broadcast program in Vancouver that was 10 months in length, right after high school. And it took me a year to find my first job in the biz. And it was in Fort Nelson, British Columbia. So small resource town at the extreme northern end of our province. So, there I was at the age of 19, packing up all my stuff and moving to Prince George for my first job in radio. Moved on to Fort St. John, and then from Fort St. John to Parksville, and then landed a news job in Squamish, which was a bit of a diversion because I had not really focused on news, but I knew Squamish was where I wanted to be because I knew it well, and I loved the place where I grew up. So there I am, a rookie journalist sitting in the back of Municipal Hall council chambers, covering council meetings, and thinking at the ripe age of 21, think one day I could probably sit in those seats. And many years later, I sat in one of those seats.
Okay, so you're 21 and you're sitting in the back of the council chambers. I remember being a 21-year-old reporter at the back of the council meeting, and first time I ever did that, I went, "Oh my God, this is the most boring thing I've ever done, and why am I sitting here listening to people talk about planning and bylaws?" But now I'm like, "Oh my God, that's the greatest thing since sliced bread." What was it about the allure of the municipal world that you said, I could see myself being here one day? Because not many people say when they're 21, I want to be a municipal councillor.
Yeah, for me, it was the opportunity to make a difference. I really saw how, knowing what I knew about how it all worked, because I covered it as a journalist for many years. Um, I just really felt like if I could be one of the people casting one of those votes, I could be making a difference in my community. And to this day, I still feel that that is the case. You know, like we are making decisions every Tuesday that are having real life impacts for people in our community and helping people out.
So, what took place in 2018 to make you finally decide that was the year you were going to put your name on the ballot? Because, and God bless the great people of British Columbia, because your election information municipally is the easiest to navigate and
Yeah.
the easiest to find, unless there's a by-election. If there's a by-election, I cannot find any information. So the only information I have is the first time you put your name on the ballot is 2018. Was there one before that? And if not, what was going on in 2018 to say, okay, this is John's time?
Our election cycle here is every 4 years. So in 2014, there was an election. And in 2011, there was an election. So um, I really started thinking seriously about it in the lead up to the 2000 election or 2011 election. My children, though, at that time were in their preteens, and I literally asked my family, "What do you think?" And my oldest child was really old enough to really understand what it would have meant as a family, and had some thoughts. My wife, in particular, though, she felt it wasn't the right time. So, in the lead up to the 2014 election, we again had that same conversation, and at that point, both my children were old enough to really understand what it would have meant. And again, as a family, we decided that at that time, it wasn't the time. Now, by the time 2018 was rolling around, both my children were out of the house. My youngest went to high school for grade 11 and grade 12 at the Alberta School of Ballet in Calgary. So it just made sense. But there were no children in the way by 2018, and all of my family, including my siblings and my parents, were all supportive and involved to some extent in the election in 2018.
Were you still a reporter, or were you still a news journalist at the time when you were putting your name forward? Because I've chatted to a few municipal leaders who have that background. I have that background when I ran, and I can tell you, running when you're a reporter, running when you're a journalist is you have to build that Chinese wall between yourself, the Great Wall between what you're reporting on and what you're saying as a reporter. For you, were you still a reporter at the time, and how did you balance those two narratives?
Yeah, so I wasn't, and I made a conscious decision not to be in media at that time. Um, so after 2014, I was pretty certain that 2018 was going to be the year, and I got out of journalism and took a job in construction materials sales. So I was selling um, insulation, drywall, and roofing materials. And when I was interviewing for that job, I said to them, I am going to be seeking election in 2018. So you got to know, if I'm elected, I'm basically not going to be available Tuesdays. And is that going to work? And if it's not, I need to know now, because this isn't going to be the job for me. And yeah, so I consciously took on that job, knowing that I didn't want to be in media and running an election campaign at the same time.
Okay. So 2018 comes and goes. You get elected in your very first attempt. And that is it's not rare, but it's an impressive feat, particularly when you're up against a few incumbents. I was looking at the election. There were a lot of people, and you were elected at large, if I'm not mistaken. So everyone in the community gets to vote for five or six different councillors. When you were door knocking, as a former journalist, as someone who had a sort of ear to the ground, as they call it in the media business, were you hearing things at the door? Were you hearing things from your residents, the residents who would be voting for you? And you went, "Oh, I didn't think this was an issue." Or were you pretty comfortable with the issues that were coming up? And now that you're now 7 years into the position, are there days when you're still going, "Oh, I didn't think this was an issue"?
When I was campaigning in 2018, I was up to speed on all of it. And and that shouldn't be a surprise because it was my job to be, fully on top of it. So no,
Can I
there weren't
challenge
any
you on that for a
surprises.
second?
Sure.
While there's very macro issues and there like when you run a campaign, there's a lot of macro issues. There's often the issues that you don't often hear about, the micro issues, the ones about the mom and dad who are struggling to make ends meet, the child who needs more social services to help their at the library, to help with their development. You weren't hearing anything that was sort of not shocking, but where, oh, this is a very unique issue to parent X or parent Y or parent J, or were they all those macro issues?
Well, um,
Challenge
I
me on
think,
it. Come on, John.
well, the
Challenge.
thing is, I had been reporting on stuff happening out of Municipal Hall. I was first hired at the radio station in 1990, and I did a tour through
Wait,
radio, and then I
hold
moved
on a
over to.
second. How old are you? I'm thinking you're like 41 here, and you're going 1990. You were first hired. I'm going, wait, I'm doing bad math if that's the case. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'll be 56 in August. Yeah, well,
Continue on.
so I had really seen it all as far as municipal politics and municipal issues go. And once I left radio and went into print, so I was covering municipal halls up and down the Sea to Sky corridor. So Lions Bay to Pemberton, and also over on the Sunshine Coast, Sechelt, Gibsons. Um, and with covering that many communities with that variety of population and issues, I really did see it all between 1990 and 2014 when I finally completely left media.
Before we start talking about the role of a counselor, I have one last simple question, and it's a question that I always like to hear because I remember that very first time when I walked into the ballot box and I saw my name on the ballot. I can tell you it is the most surreal experience in my life seeing your name on the ballot because at least you're no, unless you vote incorrectly, you're going to get one vote because you don't know how people are going to go into that ballot box and vote. When you saw your name on that ballot box and you put that X or that check mark beside your name, what was that moment like for you? And do you still get that moment when you ran last election and potentially when you run next year, if you run next year?
Yeah, I will be running. The day after the last election, I declared I'd be seeking re-election. It is a bit surrealistic. Yeah, and it's fun. I love it. I have a bit of an ego. I think you have to survive in radio. And I'll tell you a story. When I came back in 1990, one of the members of Squamish Council was Corrine Lonsdale, who went on to become our mayor for many years, and she has a daughter my age, so I knew her well. She was Mrs. Lonsdale. She lived around the corner from me, and she knows my family well, and she was telling everybody close to me, when you go into that ballot box, if you really want to support John, the only mark you make in the councillor vote is for him. And a few of my family members said to me afterwards, yeah, I talked to Corrine and she told me just to vote for you. So that's what I did.
Oh,
So,
that's awesome. So I want to
so
turn to the role of a counselor because I used to be a reporter covering Municipal Hall, and I can tell you there's sometimes when I sat in that back of that council meetings that I go, "Oh, why are they voting this way? Why are they voting that way?" It's that armchair expert sort of mentality that a lot of people on social media today still have. When you sat down and started making those tough decisions, which I can imagine you have had some very tough decisions, were you surprised at how hard they had to the decisions you had to make? Because when you're on the other side of the table they seem easy, but when you actually are making financial decisions of day-to-day people's lives, it is very difficult for you. How do you do it?
um, yeah, I mean, you're correct. I absolutely agree with you. Some of the votes, I sit in that chair and I'm making a game second decision how I'm going to vote. It doesn't happen very often, but there certainly have been more than a few times. And a big part of it is me knowing that how I vote is going to have a direct impact on some of the people I know. And I think that the best example of this are budgets. Um, when a council agrees on a budget, one of the things you're agreeing on is how much you're going to tax your neighbors, like the tax implications for people that are close to me. And Squamish is a very expensive place to live. Like when you compare our cost of living to communities around us, we're one of the highest in British Columbia. It has to do with our proximity to Vancouver and Whistler and our fast growth. And every time I vote on a budget, I am thinking about the retired senior who is on a fixed income, who has said to me, John, if you guys increase my property taxes by 6%, I will have to leave this place. I will have to list my house and move somewhere less expensive. And so, Chris, that weighs on me. Like, I know how impactful our budgets are for people who are living close to the edge.
So I just recently wrote an opinion piece on 0% tax increases on my website. And while it is hard to make those tough decisions where you are playing with people's lives, playing with the ability for someone to go get groceries every day, every week, or going to pay for their mortgage every month or their rent, municipalities have to sort of grow, and they are growing. All municipalities are growing, and there's a lot of downloading that's going on. If Parksville Councillor Sean Woodwood was on the show, he'd talk about how the province and the federal government are downloading onto municipalities and they're not giving the funding, which they're not. When you make those tough decisions, you have to sell that to the people and you have to stand by the decision you've made, whether it be in favor of a budget increase or in favor of a 0% increase. How important is it for you to communicate to residents, even if the feedback you're hearing is going to be negative?
I'm not a proponent of 0% increases. And in Squamish, we are in desperate need of another swimming pool, another sheet of ice. Our municipal hall is in terrible shape and it needed to be replaced 10 years ago. We've just replaced both of our fire halls because both of them needed it. We're in the process of building a new public works facility because, again, the existing one was way beyond life for a bunch of years. So I acknowledge that zero and even 1.5, 2%, those increases are too low. And so that's where you have to find that magic line is, what is the point of pain where it's acceptable? And in my experience, I'm finding that the 4 to 6% on an annual basis is a bit of a sweet spot, but it's all going to be based on infrastructure and facilities deficit. If your community has not been spending on those important buildings, then you gotta take the pain and go with something that's going to be higher than a 5% annual property increase.
Well, we saw what happened to Soyuz, and I hate to use them all the time as the sort of the example of what happens when you
Hmm?
refuse to fund infrastructure projects for a long period of time, you see an 18% property tax increase, which people are upset about, which is understandable because you let things get to a point, you have to sort of find the solutions. But I don't want to pick on a Soyuz. I'm not picking on a Soyuz. I know Mayor McCoff, and she is a great mayor. I think they're
They're
doing a
good
great
people.
job. They are good people. But I want to go back to the decisions you have to make. We expect our counselors, and I say we as the royal, we expect our counselors to be infallible about the decisions that they make, and we expect them to make the decisions that we as residents want to make. But the big thing is, I guarantee you, if I go to Squamish today and I ask 100 people, 100% of the people that I ask will not agree on the issues that are important to the community. How do you, as a counselor, decide what is important and what isn't? Because you're going to upset somebody, aren't you?
This is such a great question. And I have to tell you a story of my first term. So Mayor Karen Elliott
Mhm.
was the mayor in my first term. Amazing individual. I really wanted her to seek a second term as mayor, and she opted not to, and she's out of politics now. We in our council have one-on-one, regularly scheduled, like quarterly, with the mayor to just have a sit down and be like, okay, what's going on? Let's catch up. What are you looking for? What are you not getting? And in my first sit down with Karen, she said to me, John, you need to speak up more. The people who voted for you, they gave you a voice, and you need to use it because that's what those people expect. And shoot, I agreed with her. I wasn't speaking up enough. I wasn't sharing my opinions as much as I could and should. And I was a little uncertain with some of my votes, but that meeting was a turning point for me because I really got it. I agreed with her. I do need to be the voice of those people. And so one of the things I took into that council was being born and raised in Squamish. So knowing a lot of longtime residents and a lot of people who were on that verge of leaving because they were being priced out of their own community. And that's what Karen was, I think, trying to tell me was I needed to speak up for those people who were on that verge of leaving the community. I took that to heart, and I started to come into meetings with more prepared notes and stronger opinions, and actually speaking them instead of sitting back and kind of letting everybody else do the talking.
But there has to be a fine line there, doesn't it? Because you can't just
Mhm.
speak for the sake of speaking. If you have something, it's I don't want to say intelligible to say because that's not a word, but if you have something that is going to provide good, provide the topic to move forward, great. But you're not just reiterating exactly what the other person has just said because trust me, I've heard a lot of those counselors and those are fun. But do you always try to make sure that you're saying something different, but also in your own words and giving that voice to the people who have been there their entire lives in Squamish?
Generally, yeah. There are times when I come in with prepared speaking notes, and I will turf them because the five counselors who spoke before me, it's not very often I'm the last counselor to speak, but the last thing I want to do is be the seventh person in the room to say the same things. So in our council, we often hear, I won't repeat what my colleagues have just said, um, and I would rather do that and scrap the speaking notes that I came in with, and try and find something different and original that nobody else has said, to share in the debate and reiterate and repeat what everybody's already said.
Before we move on to the community as a whole, I had to pull up this quote to be exact to make sure I read it correctly. And at the beginning of the interview, in the pre-interview, I said to John that I'm not here to say on October 12th you said something. Well, I'm about to just break my own rule by saying when you announced that you were running for re-election in 2022, prior to the re-election bid, you said to a reporter in the Squamish Chief that two pillars of your platform involved fostering a renewed sense of community in town. What do you mean by that? And how do you see yourself as a counselor doing that? And do you think you've done it in this term so far, knowing that you're 3 years into a 4 year term?
Yeah, Squamish has a very industrial heritage. We were a forestry town, as I was growing up through the 70s and 80s, and that started to slip through the 90s. we were for many, many years neighboring community to a mining smelter, mining facility in Britannia Beach. We had railway maintenance yards. We had lumber mills. We had a major, huge pulp mill. And through the 90s, all of that disappeared. So one of the things I was getting at there was my thinking that we need to find a way to bring back some industry for a number of reasons. The tax benefits, industrial taxes are significant. And for job opportunity. As I was going through the years leading up to me running for election, a lot of my friends were losing their jobs and looking for retraining, going from being in the forest industry to a tourism job of some kind. So huge transition in our community and our economy, and with people moving away. Squamish is one of those places where somebody could have bought a home in 1995 and then sold it in 2005 and basically be set for life. Sell that single family home and move to insert small BC town here, Comox, Courtenay, Penticton, Vernon, and live mortgage free in a house that's basically the same size as the one you just sold in Squamish. So that's really what I was getting at, was a bit of some return to some industrial activity to help support our economy.
How's that going, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, it was an easy thing to fulfill on, because we have a liquefied natural gas export facility that is under construction. Just 7 kilometers south of our downtown, but within our municipal boundaries. And at that time of that quote, there was some thought that it may not happen. Well, the thing is well under construction now, and it's set to start pumping out LNG in 2027. So that one industrial outlet alone sort of fulfills the industrial end of things. Now, though complementing that, we have smaller light industry to support not just wood fiber LNG, but all of the other industrial activity that's taking place, not just in Squamish, but also Metro Vancouver, where there is a shortage of industrial lands. So we're a place that's got some land potentially available that can be developed for industry. We still need to get pipes, water and sewer and electricity to that area of our town, but it's there, it's waiting, and it's a good potential candidate to increase the stock of industrial lands, not just for Squamish, but for the region.
I appreciate the answer. I want to turn to the district of Squamish as a whole now. But before I do that, if you've listened to the show on numerous occasions, I'm going to just go do a little preamble here just to make sure I get this on the record for those who are listening in Squamish. This is a conversation between the councillor and myself. This is not a motion of council, not a direction of council, not a policy of council. This is a councillor's opinion and his opinion alone. He needs a majority of people at the council meetings to vote in favor or against a motion, a policy, or a direction of administration. And he is speaking on behalf of himself, not on behalf of the District of Squamish. This is his opinion. It may line up with what's going on at the District of Squamish Council, but it is his opinion. I'll still get another email about that probably. Councillor, in your opinion, as of recording this in July 2025, what do you see as the biggest challenge or challenges facing the District of Squamish today?
I think it's housing, and there are a lot of things that feed into that housing, from mental health and addictions, the tainted drug crisis, job creation. But Squamish is a place in between a world-class resort in Whistler and a world-class city in Vancouver. Those two factors alone make us a really desirable place to live. Oh, and we just happen to have world-class climbing here, kite sailing. We've got some great golf courses, salmon spawn here, which means if you like to fish. This is a great place to be. Mountain bike trails, massive number of kilometers within, like right on the doorstep of multiple neighborhoods. So we're a nature lover's paradise in between these two amazing locations. And it means that a lot of people want to be here and commute to their jobs in Vancouver or Whistler. And since the pandemic, telecommute to anywhere in the world. And it just means that the demand for housing here has skyrocketed in the last couple of years. And it puts it as the number one issue in my mind, likely for the next decade.
Are developers knocking on Squamish's door and saying we want to build, or are they building? And I say this respectfully to the larger municipalities, but there's been a focus in the last few years around Vancouver, Montreal, Victoria, like the larger urban centers. Now, while Squamish is an urban setting, it does have a large rural base that surrounds it. You have mountains that surround you, you have the rainforest that surrounds you. What do you see developers coming, or is there another avenue that the council has to take to incentivize people to come and develop, even if it is a single house or an apartment complex or a row of townhouses? How do you see yourself trying to solve the issue?
We don't need to incentivize.
Oh,
the,
really?
the the incentive is here. In fact, so
Is
when
it
a new
is it the
developer,
incentive of the location of your community, or is it the
yeah,
incentive or money?
it's the location.
Okay.
We have no shortage of developers with property holdings who want to build here. That's not an issue. Like we're not, our economic development department isn't out there hustling to get developers interested in our community. In fact, I would argue it's the exact opposite. So when I meet with developers for the very first time, I have learned in the last 2 or 3 years, I open up with, look, if you're serious about developing and building here, the number one thing you have to have is patience. And if you don't have it, I recommend you sell your property and get out, because we're a small municipal hall. Like our planning staff is not massive a
It's
la
not a
Vancouver,
Vancouver
Victoria.
size. Yeah.
Exactly. And so when I hear a complaint, it took 6 months just to get a planner assigned to my file. I'm like, yeah, that's what happens here. Sorry, but that's the reality. And again, if you're not happy with that, then get out. Go develop in Penticton. Go develop in Oliver. So yeah, I
But
get that as a
can I
baseline.
sort of pose a hypothetical question here? While 6 months is understandable, and trust me, there's a lot of municipalities who are going 6 months. That's like a hop, skip, and jump. Like some of our municipalities are waiting a year or even 15 months to get a development permit approved. When developers come, are they coming under the assumption that the infrastructure will be in ground already, or are they willing to work with the municipalities to bring those infrastructure to the housing? Because there's a big issue right now that I'm finding that you have to put the cart before the horse in some sense. You need to put the infrastructure in ground, but we just talked about it earlier in the episode, in the interview, that funding is too, like, we don't have enough funding municipalities, and you can't raise taxes 15% to bring the future of Squamish to the Squamish of today. You have to sort of do it sustainably. Are developers understanding that they're going to have to sort of pitch in as well through development permits?
Our official community plan emphasizes infill. We're a community that has got within our municipal boundaries and within our growth management boundary a pretty good stable of undeveloped properties. So we're not entertaining a lot of greenfield development proposals
Oh,
that
wow. Okay.
require new pipes into the ground because we're putting that emphasis on infill. So our downtown is bordered by Malcolm Blind Channel, so a water course on the east side, and then to the south, Howe Sound, the ocean, and to the west, the Squamish River, and then a rail line. And it's a pretty, it's a smallish area. And we have indicated in our official community plan that we are envisioning our downtown to go up. So we're approving 8-story in height for our downtown and have been for a bunch of years. So that's part of our infill strategy, is to make our downtown a livable, walkable, very active area with lots of retail and lots of shopping options. And we're starting to sort of get away from that because we're getting to the point, in my opinion, is not shared by all my council colleagues, where our downtown is like what we have approved and what we're working on to approve at this point is going to give us a good population that I don't necessarily want us to see us plan beyond. But outside of our downtown, we still have lots more infill. We've got lots of room. Well, I'm sure you're well familiar with the provincial directive on housing in BC that takes single family lots existing now and give the owner of that property the ability to put 4 units onto that lot, and in some cases 6. So that alone allows for a lot of infill opportunity.
Well, I think that's even a requirement for any municipality applying to the federal government under CMHC, if I'm not mistaken, Canadian Housing Corporation, whatever it's gas phone, whatever it's called these days, because it changes every week, it sounds like. I want to go back to the you talk about the sort of the developers coming. Are the residents coming along for this ride as well? Do you get a sense that people, I don't want to say NIMBYism, but I kind of have to because it is something that I'm hearing a lot from municipal leaders. And because you talk about that community pride, and pride is one thing in your community of, I moved to Squamish, I grew up in Squamish for X. But if you don't want your taxes to continuously increase by 5 to 6% every year, people have to move in, and that means more housing has to be built. And that's my opinion. And I'm assuming the councillor agrees because he's nodding his head for those who are listening to this, but I could be wrong. I'm not going to put words in his mouth. Do you get a sense that they're, and knowing that 100% of the people are never going to be behind any decision the council makes, do you get a sense that the majority of residents are along for the ride to say, we need to grow? Because if we grow, that will bring our industry back into town, that will bring new businesses, and that will lower our taxes? Or do you get a sense that we want Squamish to stay what Squamish was in the 1980s?
Hard to really know because I don't know of any good polling or statistics that would say, X percentage are fully in favor of future development and growth, and X percentage say put up a wall and don't let anyone else in. Um, I in conversing with and seeing online comments from folks that I've known for a long, long time, a lot of them are not happy with the growth rate. And some of
Yeah.
them solve their unhappiness by just moving away. They sell that $1.8 million home that they're living in mortgage free. So
It's a double-edged sword, and I completely
yeah,
understand that there's always going to be some concern, which is understandable, but we have to continue to move forward. If we don't, we're going to be stagnant, and that's what the world we do not need. I want to flip the original question here for a second because I'm cautious of time, and I just realized we're about the 35-minute mark, and I said 40 minutes, and we're about 5 minutes away. So hopefully you got another extra 10 minutes for me. But I want to turn to the good things, because we often only talk about the bad things that happen in municipalities. When we gather at FCM, the UBCM, we often talk about what's going wrong, what are the challenges that we're facing, and how can we solve them together. But we often forget to talk about the good things. What's the good thing that you are proud of when it comes to your community? When you look at the challenges around health, mental health, and addictions, when you talk about the drug challenges, you talk about the housing challenge, the infrastructure challenges, but there's got to be good things that go on in Squamish, right?
yeah, there are so many. Um, let me go to my family roots of being the child of a career volunteer firefighter. I grew up in the fire hall. Me and my siblings, every sort of major holiday you can think of, Easter, Christmas, um, long weekends, the fire hall had something going for the families. And we've kind of moved away from that now. We don't have a volunteer fire department anymore. They're all paid on call because their time is valuable. And we a few years ago decided that if our firefighters are going to be committed to um, that job, we should pay them, and we should pay them like the pros that they are. So, uh, but those individuals who are doing that paid on call firefighting work, they generally all have full time jobs. And when there's a fire, their pager goes off and they let their employer know, look, gotta go, hotel's on fire. And those individuals, I just hold them in such high regard. They're family people, men, women, and they are committed to their community, and they display it by doing the training, by doing the learning, and then when they're needed, they drop everything and they go. And uh, for me, that's sort of the community that I want to be a part of, where um, the people are wanting to be involved in minor ball, and they want to be hockey coaches, and they want to referee the soccer games. So I think for me that is it. It's the people and the commitment to this community and this place.
As we enter the summer months, I should remind people who are listening, the counselor is right. The firefighters, the police, the ambulance drivers, the healthcare workers who are there working around the clock, who don't get to celebrate with their families, whether it be Canada Day, Labor Day, long weekends throughout the summer, be kind to each other. Don't drink and drive. And I hate to say that, but as a former volunteer firefighter myself, I remember getting called on regular occurrences during holidays and summer months, and it can be challenging. And just be prepared to plan ahead. Don't drink and drive. And there's my little statement, because we want everyone to have a fun, eventful week, but we want to make sure people don't have calls out. Oh, sorry. I just need to get that on because it's a very big passion of mine. I want to turn to my last subject, and that's a topic that you talked about a little bit already, but I want to talk about it a little bit more in depth because I'm coming to Squamish later on this summer because that's what I do best. Because I just get out, and as you know, John, I like to drive and I like to travel and I like to go to different places. So I'm coming to Squamish. What should a tourist do this summer in Squamish if they have time?
Well, if you are athletic, I would and enjoy a good hike. I would
Which
recommend
by
hike
my
up.
size, you know that I love hiking, right? Because I ooze hiking ability.
Right. So, two recommendations: hike up the Squamish Chief. So that is our granite monolith that allows you to hike up the back trail and then get to the front face and look out um, panoramic views, down Howe Sound and up towards Whistler. Amazing. Now, if and most people comfortably do that hike in an hour. And if that doesn't sound too exciting for you, then the alternative is to hop onto the Sea to Sky gondola, which is located next to the provincial park where the chief is, and takes you actually a little bit higher than the summit of the chief. Same views. Uh, the difference is at the top of the gondola, you can buy yourself a beer and, or, whatever beverage you're into, and sit on a patio and drink in the views with the friends who've done the trip up with you.
That's where's your favorite spot in the community after a long day of work, after a long day of being around that council table at on Tuesday night? Where do you go just relax and enjoy yourself to just decompress? And I'm going to say this, I'm going to preface it. You can't say your own house.
Okay. I am a 2 minute trail walk from the Squamish River. So, and the shoreline close to my house there's trees, forest. It's beautiful. So, yeah, I would tend to just escape over to the river and sit and have a little meditation, listening to the water flowing by and birds in the trees.
Sounds breathtaking and sounds just relaxful. Being surrounded by that much wilderness, I can imagine it's like a counselor's paradise just to be surrounded by that 24/7. And that kind of leads into my last question, which is the $1 million question there, counselor. And that is, in your opinion, and I think you've kind of touched on it a bit during the episode, but let's sort of wrap it up to the elevator pitch. In your opinion, what makes Squamish, the district of Squamish, such a unique place to live, to work, and to raise a family?
it's those outdoor opportunities. And my oldest was not really an outdoor enthusiast, loved books and video games. And even that child came to appreciate all that there is in the way of outdoor opportunities here. From hiking to biking and jumping off of things with parasails. I bring that up because just today I was out for a walk and two people jumped off the Chief and had their paragliders open and they sailed down. That's really it. It's the outdoor recreation opportunities here. There is so much to do, and our climate is such that we're never really extremely hot. We're never really extremely cold. So you can enjoy almost everything year round outdoors here.
John, Counselor, I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I'm so glad that we were able to connect at FCM this May. And I'm so honored that you're able to take time out of your busy schedule to sit down and do this interview with me. Always a pleasure. And when I'm in Squamish, I'll look you up and we'll go grab a gondola ride. I'll drink hot chocolate or I'll drink root beer and you can have a beer if you want. But thank you so much.
Yeah, perfect. Let's do that. I look forward.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Cross Border Interviews. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights into the world of municipal politics in the District of Squamish, British Columbia. Now, to learn more about our show and the people and the communities that we feature on this show, visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Now, your support means the world to us, so share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. And if you want, go back and follow us on all your favorite podcast platforms or by visiting us on YouTube if you're watching us there, and hit that subscribe button to make sure you keep up to date with all our great episodes this summer and into the fall and winter of 2025. Now, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back with a brand new episode of Cross Border Interviews next Wednesday. Till then, everyone.